I've always believed real love is made of boring decisions. Not fireworks. Not captions. Sober things. You set the reminder for the dentist. You label the keys. You buy the good plunger before you need it. I'm good at that kind of love. It's quiet and it holds. Hannah used to say that was the safest thing about me. I made safety out of errands. When she'd come home ragged from a day of meetings with people who thought urgency was a personality, I'd have the kettle on and a towel warming on the radiator for after her shower. I didn't dazzle her. I remembered her. We'd talked about kids the way people do when they're still trying to figure out who they are. Someday, when we feel ready, when the job isn't a bonfire, when rent stops being an argument. We'd point at a pair of tiny boots in a shop window and make a joke that was also a question. We said things like, "Not now," and "I'd like that," and let the future nod back without pressing us for a date. Then January came with its clean paper feeling, and Hannah said we should do a year of ready. Not pregnant now, not trying now, but making space for the idea so it wouldn't feel like a stunt when it arrived. Let's become the kind of people a baby could join without our whole life collapsing, she said. She had a way of making logistics sound like romance. We built a dumb little system because that's what we do. Sunday evenings became inventory. We lit a candle and opened a spreadsheet, and I typed while she talked, and together we made columns that meant nothing to anyone else and everything to us. Sleep, groceries, savings, house repairs, time off. The checklist looked like it belonged to a project instead of a person, but that was the point. It took the panic out. We'd allocate a little money to nothing. We called it air, so the budget could breathe. We started putting our phones in a bowl at 9, so the dark could feel like dark again. We drank less on weekdays. I put a hook by the door for the future, a tiny jacket we didn't own yet. By March, we had a rhythm that felt like it might carry us. Then Hannah's job turned menacing. New leadership, new quotas, 5 alarms every afternoon. She'd come home vibrating with other people's emergencies, sit at the table, and rub her eyes like she was trying to erase them. We held the line where we could. I kept dinner simple and on time. She tried not to bring the office home like a disease. It was after one of those weeks that she turned her mug in small circles on the table and said, "Can we talk about one piece of the plan?" She had her careful voice on, the one she uses for fragile things and bad news that wants to be reasonable. "Always," I said, because that's the easiest true sentence I know. "I think we should wait a year," she said, exhaling like she had been holding the air hostage. "Not forever. Just not now. I need to get my footing at work, and I don't want to start from panic. But I also don't want to spend 12 months worrying that one well-timed kiss detonates the whole plan." I nodded. "So we do what we're already doing. Careful is free." She flinched in this tiny way that only people who live together notice. "I want to take the chance out completely," she said, eyes on the mug. "I read about reversals, and there's something you could do that would take the pressure off me. Off us." The sentence took a second to step out of its disguise. "You want me to get a vasectomy," I said, slowly, as if pronunciation required courage. "Just for now," she said quickly, like the word itself had a timer on it. "Reversible. Guys do it all the time. We could stop thinking about time. I could stop counting days like a witch. We'd both sleep better." I didn't say no. I also didn't do that reckless yes some men perform when they're trying to win points with the future. I asked for time. Not to avoid it, just to not turn my body into a policy on a bad week. She nodded like she'd rehearsed both answers and had a brave face ready for either. I made the appointment. The urologist's waiting room was a lineup of magazines you read when you don't want to look at anyone. The doctor was kind and competent and very good at facts said in sentences that didn't invite debate. He said, "Outpatient and low risk, and not a light switch, and you'll still need to be careful for a while because science doesn't obey calendars." I asked my questions like a man who has repaired a lot of things and knows the difference between an instruction manual and advertising. He answered like a man who doesn't love surprises. I went home and told Hannah what I'd learned. She listened with her whole face, nodding that precise nod people do when they're filing information into the drawer they've already labeled. "Book it," she said softly. "Thank you." I didn't book it that night. I walked around with the decision in my pocket like a coin I wasn't sure I was ready to spend. This wasn't about doubts. It was about respect, for the part of me that had never asked for anything big, and for the part of her that had trusted me to carry a heavy thing without resentment. 2 days later, I called. The earliest date was 6 weeks out. Put me on the list, I said. The receptionist said they'd call if someone canceled. I added it to the spreadsheet. April 28th, 10 a.m. Planned to be useless. Meanwhile, we kept our fences in place. Condoms. Caution. The kind of discipline that doesn't feel like romance, but keeps romance from becoming irony. Hannah seemed lighter with the decision made. She slept deeper. She smiled into the fridge again. She booked a reset weekend at a cabin upstate with a couple of women from her office. No phones. The kind of trip where you come back smelling like cedar and a plan. Don't make the bed while I'm gone, she texted. I want to come back to us exactly as we are. I sent her a photo of the unmade bed at noon, the good kind of still life. She sent back a photo of a lake pretending to be a mirror. Sunday night, she returned sun-tired and soft. We watched a documentary with the subtitles on and her feet under my leg like we were learning how to be old together. We went to bed early. We didn't test fate. I don't perform superstition, but I respect math. April arrived like a well-meaning supervisor. I did my pre-op blood work. I bought the softest sweatpants I could find because if you're going to be tender, you might as well be comfortable. Hannah made a little recovery nest on the couch with blankets and a bell I refused to ring on principle. She put the appointment on our big calendar in the kitchen like a birthday you don't throw a party for. 2 days before the procedure, the office called to say the doctor had to reschedule. Family emergency, next available slot in 3 weeks. I stared at the phone blinking in my hand like it had a pulse. I said okay because what else do you say to a stranger protecting his own life? I told Hannah. She swallowed a noise and then smiled that brave smile I know too well. We've managed this long, she said. We can manage 3 more weeks. We did. Carefully. Almost politely. We spoke in fewer jokes. The world didn't owe us a baby, and it certainly didn't owe us a drama. We were 2 people who wanted to steward their luck. Then the morning arrived with its own agenda. A Tuesday, unremarkable. I was in the middle of 3 emails when Hannah texted. Can you meet me at the cafe at noon? I'm nearby. No punctuation beyond the period. Some messages hum. This one didn't. I walked the 6 blocks with my hands in my jacket and my stomach doing that quiet folding it does when the body has already read the next page. Hannah was at a corner table with the light hitting her earrings in a way she would have commented on any other day. She stood, hugged me, sat, and then pulled something from her tote. A white stick in a zippered pouch I recognized because the internet insists on showing you ads for things you talk about out loud. She set it on a napkin like it was hot. I didn't plan to test today, she said in a rush. Words like dominoes finally getting permission to fall. I was late. I told myself it was stress. Then I bought one because if you buy one you won't need it. You know how that is. She laughed, the missing laugh of someone trying to keep the lid on. It's positive, she said, eyes on the napkin. I took a second one in the bathroom just to see if the universe was messing with me. It wasn't. I'm pregnant. I looked at her hands because faces can be unreliable in big moments. Her fingers were very still, folded like she was in class. Okay, I said, because sometimes the first word has to be small so the rest can fit in the room. She reached back into the tote and produced a glossy black and white image, the kind everyone has seen even if they've never held one. An ultrasound printout with the little bright oval that makes the strongest people fall apart. My throat tried to close around nothing. She slid it toward me with 2 fingertips. The clinic had a slot. I went. They said everything looks good. They gave me this. The top of the image had typed information in tiny letters, the way hospitals love, facility name, patient name, date, time, a string of numbers. My brain read it even as my heart begged it not to. There was another line, 2, to the right of the oval, GA, 9W2D. It wasn't a secret code. It was just a measurement. Gestational age. A way of naming the distance between a beginning and a right now. 9 weeks and 2 days. Math is unforgiving when it's not on your side. I keep a calendar because my life makes more sense when rectangles contain it. I knew the last time we had been careless enough to trust an idea. I knew the careful weeks since. I knew the appointment I hadn't had yet. I knew the cabin weekend without reception. I knew the Tuesday night we looked at each other and said, not tonight, like a vow to a God we don't believe in. The numbers lined up like soldiers and did their job. They refused to lie. My hand found the edge of the table. It felt almost funny to feel my fingers and think, at least what is honest. Hannah watched me read the image. People don't look at sonograms. They read them. They scan for good news, and then for permission to be human. I saw her see me seeing it. She touched the corner of the printout with the smallest finger and said too quickly, "They date it from the last period. It's not exact. It can be off." I Googled it. It's fuzzy. Fuzzy is a word you use for sweaters and background noise, not clocks. 9 weeks and 2 days wasn't fuzzy. 9 weeks and 2 days put conception in a week I could name by what we ate. Tuesday, the burnt salmon. Friday, the leftovers we admitted were better. It put it before the reschedule call, before the appointment sticker moved to May, before our caution got louder than our romance. It put it where neither of us had been, together. I could have asked 1,000 questions in a voice loud enough to bend the spoons. I could have said his name though I didn't know it. I could have demanded a story that would make me the kind of man who believes lies if they come wearing hope. I did none of that. I am not built for courtroom scenes. I am built for finding the bone under a mess. I turned the printout back toward her so the oval faced her again. I set the white stick beside it as if they were a pair. Then I folded my hands and looked at the tiny napkin under the proof the universe had mailed to her body. "How long?" I asked, and it was a genuine question, not an accusation. If you ask it right, a good question gives someone a way to tell the truth. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked like someone who had been holding a tray that was too heavy for too long. "Since February," she said. I thought it was stress. And then it wasn't. And then I told myself it would stop if I slept enough. And then it didn't. And then I went to the cabin, and the air made me stupid. Or brave. Or something. "It is not about you," she added, tripping over the sentence the way everyone does when they are telling you a thing that is exactly about you in every way that matters. I nodded, not to comfort her, but to anchor the moment. Without a nod, a room like that tilts. "Okay," I said again, and I meant it in the way a surgeon means okay. Not approval, readiness. The barista called someone's name, and the milk machine screamed its line. Outside, a bus sighed. The world kept being the world, which is one of its most offensive habits. Hannah was crying, but hiding it well. She reached for my hand, and then stopped because my hands were folded like a door not meant to open from this side. "We could," she began, and then failed to land the sentence in a place where both of us would fit. "The plan, we could adjust the plan. People do." I pictured the spreadsheet, those good little rectangles trying to hold water. I pictured the hook by the door waiting for a jacket that had not been earned by either of us. I pictured the kettle at home, the towel on the radiator, the bell I refused to ring. "I won't be a slogan in my own house," I said gently. I didn't know I had that sentence until I heard it come out of me. "You don't need my permission to do what you've already done. You will never need my permission to tell the truth to a tiny person whose beginnings are not mine. But I do not need to live in a story that hires me as a prop." She nodded like a metronome that had lost its purpose. She wiped under her eyes and left a clean line that dried while we looked at nothing. I didn't ask her to end anything. I didn't ask her to choose me over math. I didn't make the kind of speech that feels like power and then calcifies into regret. I asked for the only thing I can trust, a clean exit. "I'm going to go home," I said. "I'm going to pack a bag. I'm going to leave my key with Sonia and 4B. I'm going to email the landlord and tell him I don't want to fight. And then I'm going to sleep in a room that doesn't smell like promises that forgot how to be kept." Hannah made a sound that was half laugh and half injury. "You always say things like a list," she said. "Even now." "It keeps my hands busy when I can't fix anything," I said, and found a smile I didn't expect to find. It didn't reach my eyes. Some smiles are just labels. I stood. She stood. We almost did the choreography of a hug because bodies think they know how to end scenes. I put my palm to my chest instead. "Take care of yourself," I said, and I meant it more than I have ever meant that sentence. "Tell the truth to the right people. And for the love of God, eat. You forget." At home, the apartment looked like a room waiting to be graded. The kettle was where I left it, the towel cool on the radiator, the hook by the door still a hook, still empty. I packed like a man who has packed before. Clothes, documents, the folder with the appointment card I would not need to cancel because I didn't want to be a calendar event in a life I was stepping out of. The book on the nightstand, the lamp that makes every temporary place look deliberate. I took the small analog clock because phones lie when you ask them what time it is. They say time to look at me. I left my wedding band on the dresser, not for drama, but because metal carries memory and I didn't want to make my hand do that job by itself for a while. I wrote a note because I refused to be a ghost. We built a year that could hold a baby. You brought home a clock that already started. I respect a clock when it's honest. I won't be angry at the truth. I will not live under it. The rent is paid through June. The bowls are in the left cabinet. The plant drinks on Fridays. I slid the key in an envelope with Sonia's name. I carried my bag down the stairs. In the lobby, our neighbor's kid was learning to tie his shoe. He looked up at me like I was a person who knew knots. Loop, swoop, pull, I said automatically. He grinned at his foot like it had done a trick. I envied him the size of his victories. Eric's spare room smelled like cedar and laundry, the smell of men who own fewer things and take care of all of them. He didn't ask for a story. He gave me a glass of water and pointed at the lamp and went back to his life the way saints do when they aren't interested in credit. I lay on the bed and watched the analog clock be proud of its one job. I slept like a person who had finally stopped arguing with numbers. In the morning, I called the urologist and canceled the procedure. The receptionist sounded confused, and then professional, and then kind. "If you change your mind," she said, and I thanked her for her tone like it had done me a favor. Hannah emailed later with paragraphs organized like furniture in a room she hoped buyers would find compelling. She used words like complicated and misaligned in future. I read it once. I replied with 2 sentences. "I won't be unkind. I won't be here." Then I archived it, a respectful place where memories go when they no longer need my daily attention. Weeks turned into a kind of weather. Papers were signed. The lease learned our names and then forgot them. I found a small apartment with a balcony the exact size of a chair. I hung a hook by the door and didn't call it anything. I made coffee in a pot that wheezed like an old dog and tasted like mercy. I took the analog clock out of the box and set it next to the lamp. I bought a plant that looked hard to kill and promised to try. Sometimes I pass a clinic and think about the tiny bright oval and the numbers that told the truth. I don't hate them. I don't even hate math. It was the only honest person in the room that day besides me. If you're waiting for me to say I forgave her, I'll say it like this. I don't spend my minutes on anger. I spend them on shelves and clean bowls and phone calls to men who have couches when you need one. I don't keep an enemy list. I keep a grocery list. Milk, bread, the good plunger. And if one day a kid with eyes I recognize points at a hook by a door and asks what it's for, I hope whoever answers says, "It's for something we're getting ready for," and means it. That's all I ever wanted. To be a man who makes room for a truth and doesn't lie to it. We built a plan that could hold a life. The life showed up on its own clock. I folded my half of the plan into a neat square, put it in my pocket, and walked toward a room where the only math that matters is the number of things I can promise and keep.